2 out of 5 leaders are not placing a priority on preparing for a cookieless future over the next year. Obviously, the flip side of that equation, it is great to hear that, roughly 60% plus are, but we've been doing various research reports on this for the past few years, and we haven't really seen that much of an increase of readiness.
Are we ready for a world without cookies? Hello and welcome to Growth Masterminds. My name is John here. Everybody likes cookies, right? I just had 2 chocolate chip cookies myself, but not third-party browser cookies that are used to track ad effectiveness and follow customers or potential customers. They're going away at some point. We don't know when. The ecosystem isn't really ready yet. In fact, a new Adobe study of almost 2,700 marketing leaders says the ecosystem's not even close to being ready. And meanwhile, the cookieless future is just one part of a marketing world without device identifiers, without tracking, with significantly more challenging marketing measurement and significantly harder personalization. To chat, we're joined by Ryan Fleisch, who's the head of product marketing, real-time CDP, and audience manager at Adobe. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you so much for having me, John. Looking forward to chatting.
Absolutely. Let's start here. What happens when brands lose third-party cookies?
I would actually frame that question as they already have, right? We talk about this as a cookieless future with the impending changes that Google Chrome is going to make, but really it's been since 2013 that the cookie block has been chipped away at from various browsers and devices. So I think what brands are facing now is the biggest event in that chain of events, but really it's something they should be prepared for now and make sure that they're able to reach the audiences they want to reach and measure the effectiveness of what they're spending media dollars on.
Since 2013, wow. And of course, there's significant chunks of the market, social media networks, that sort of thing, where you don't have cookies as well. Are marketers actually preparing for this?
Our research shows that a good number are, but still about 2 out of 5 leaders are not placing a priority on preparing for a cookieless future over the next year. Obviously, the flip side of that equation, it is great to hear that, roughly 60% plus are, but we've been doing various research reports on this for the past few years, and we haven't really seen that much of an increase of readiness. I think there's been a lot of talk of what a cookieless future looks like, but again, reorienting that to a cookieless now, a lot of brands are still seeking answers of what does this mean for my activation, personalization, and measurement.
And in fact, your research shows there's increased investment in cookie-dependent technologies, correct?
Yeah, I think people are trying to get as much of these as they can while they can.
It's interesting because I had a front row seat because of some companies that I consult with in the mobile world. And when Apple introduced app tracking transparency and IDFAs, for all intents and purposes, largely went away. Still 20% of app installs carry an IDFA, but 80% don't, largely went away. And what we saw was kind of this sort of fin de siècle type of attitude where it's not happening, it's not happening, it's not happening. And then it happened and spend fell massively, migrated to Android, went other places, just disappeared. Do you think something similar will happen in the web world?
I think it's going to be having to spend more to recognize the same results if you don't have the right mechanisms in place. Not from our research, but I recall Facebook releasing a study saying that when Apple made its changes, on average, they were expecting small to medium-sized businesses having to potentially spend 25% more in media just to see the same results from an ROI and conversion perspective that they were prior. The good news there is I think with the right technology in place, with the right first-party data strategy, and with the right measurement, that can largely be solved for. But if brands aren't prepared for that, they can expect to see a big drop-off from what they would have previously expected in performance.
I want to get into that technology stack that you're talking about, the right technology and the right techniques to move past this era. But maybe before we do that, situate this for us for a moment. We've lost the IDFA in the marketing ecosystem. Google is doing away with the GAID. That's the Google or Android ad ID. Third-party cookies, we don't know when it'll happen. Some point it's going away. What does this mean? What does the future of marketing look like?
Yeah, so there's been a bigger and bigger dependency on first party data to replace these non durable identifiers that you just mentioned. The biggest challenge with that is first party data is not something you can just go grab more of immediately. It's much harder to cultivate and expand that. So I think marketers are really faced with three big challenges they're trying to solve for. It's of the first party data I have, how do I get the most extensibility out of that? And ways might be, where can I activate that? How do I potentially form brand partnerships so I can, with a consent first approach, make sure that I'm augmenting my first party data with partner brands that might know other things about my customers. The second is, how can I still find new users, right? New people to fill the top of my marketing funnel. And the good news there's a lot of companies out there, Epsilon, Merkle, Experian, PwC, and the list goes on, right? That do have consent-based lists of people that are not dependent on first or third-party cookies, excuse me. The third piece then is around measurement. So if I'm spending dollars on Facebook or Meta, Google, excuse me, TikTok,
The names keep
Snapchat, right?
changing.
I know, I know. All of these other, call them walled garden environments. How am I actually recognizing is that spend being attached to the conversions that are happening on my site? So those, I think, are kind of the three buckets of challenges, but frankly also opportunities that brands are looking at if done correctly.
Interesting. So the world's changing, and it's time to. Many marketers don't want to think about that or have to face that, but the world is changing. Many are facing it. What's the tech stack that enables what you're talking about, that enables continuation of marketing, of capturing first party data legally, ethically, privacy safe way, of marketing to new people as well? What's the stack that enables that?
Yeah, the foundation of it is a customer data platform, or CDP, because that's really what can help you connect data that you might have on customers from a lot of different sources, be it web-based behavioral data, CRM systems, even offline point of sale streaming data connectors coming in from there. But actually taking all that data and forming not just a unified but an actionable view of the customer, and doing that with durable data at the core. So that to me is the foundation, but it has to also be connected to where is that data being used. So while CDPs have the capabilities to activate audience segments to places like we just discussed, Google, Meta, and others, is it also connected to a system that can reach customers on email, on SMS, and a variety of other increasing number of touch points that they would want to be engaged with depending on their journey? So to me, it really comes down to the CDP at the center. Exactly. So the CDP is the core of the functionality, but with a massive importance on making sure that that doesn't create another silo in and of itself, and is actually connected to the engagement systems and the insight systems that you'd be looking to use to make a virtuous circle there.
Mm-hmm. You talked about Facebook and in their thinking out loud about some of the changes that would come with app tracking transparency, and saying that that would cause an issue for small and medium-sized businesses. When we think CDP, sometimes we think massive enterprise, multi-billion-dollar corporation, and that's true to a degree. Is it also true for smaller companies, for mobile-first companies, for medium-sized companies?
Absolutely. CDPs need to be, accessible to companies of all industries, all sizes, because at the end of the day, everybody is facing the same core challenge. How do I understand more about my customers? How am I still going to reach them effectively in a new world order that doesn't have the same data types as before? And that's what a CDP should do for companies of any size. And we at Adobe have been really placing an emphasis on making sure that there's the right tooling for companies that maybe need to do this just as a marketer's, support system, versus a large enterprise that might have 5 or 6 different parts of their organization coming to the table to work out of a CDP.
Interesting. New world order. New world order of privacy. So it was interesting when Apple introduced ATT, we saw a massive dip in ad revenue on the iOS side. you think something similar will happen on the web when the third-party cookie goes away?
I think so. The good news is when you look across these different environments that has created challenges of attributing media to conversions, most have released a conversion API or the ability to do server-side forwarding that's not dependent on cookies. So there are solutions that exist, but I think it poses a new challenge to marketers that if I'm advertising or marketing in a number of these environments, I now have to manage disparate conversion APIs. And for our own
Good luck.
brands, we see on average 10 plus of these vendor endpoints required for the average media strategy. So when you think about implementing all of these and making any updates and changes to them, that can be very unwieldy and require a lot of IT resources if there's not a centralized system that can help with that. And so that is also a core component of when we talk about a CDP and what's in ours is saying, how do you implement this once and have pre-built connections to all these environments so that you're making a single change and not have to manage across a number of silos?
How performant do you think these new solutions are compared to a third-party cookie world? If you think about a third-party cookie world, there's a lot of data. I mean, there's a reason it's going away, right? There's a lot of visibility you have into customer journey, customer activity, customer whereabouts and context and other things like that based on a third-party cookie. How performant are these newer solutions that rely on, let's say, a smaller subset of sites that you might visit and go to and act on and identify yourself there?
I think it really comes down to a trade-off in quantity versus quality, because yes, while we could go buy broad swaths of audiences with third-party cookies, I don't know about you, John, but if you ever looked on one of the sites, right, that would say what do the website think they know about John? I've gone on before and saying that I've fallen into 3 different simultaneous age groups and 20 different interests that I would have never considered, right? So I think in a lot of cases, there's not always the pinpoint accuracy that marketers would look for. So I think as we, look to a world without cookies, yes, you're not going to have the same volume of data, but you can rest assured that the quality of that data is going to be higher. And you know that you're marketing to someone with their consent, with their preferences at the forefront, if done correctly, so that you're not, introducing a creep factor or an assumption factor on what you think you might know about them that could come off the wrong way.
It's a good answer. It's a really good answer. I do a lot of Googling and searching as a result of what I'm doing. I remember a time when I was full-time at VentureBeat. We're doing a lot of marketing technology research, and I had to search a lot of stuff. And for some reason, whatever reason, this ad for women's dresses, the same one, kept following me around the web literally for months. And I was, why? I don't know. Somehow I was in some category and there it was. In any case, you're absolutely right. There's a lack of specificity and there's a lack of accuracy in a lot of that tracking. That makes sense. Okay, let's land the plane a little bit. If you've got a marketer right now, he or she is in the real world. They've got KPIs to hit. They've got goals to hit. They're doing what they can do in the world and environment that they understand. And we know that MarTech and AdTech is a fast changing, fast moving thing, but it's hard to keep up on it all. And they haven't really started the conversion, started the change. How do they start? Where do they start?
I think I'll answer that in 2 ways. One is kind of the metrics you mentioned. It's important that as an organization, people move past vanity metrics, like what's my blended conversion rate or click-through rate, right? And start focusing more on what's the quality of experiences we're generating, just not the number of exposures. Because if you can start tracking what does each journey look like for a user, how is that person not only converting, but hopefully building, a lifetime relationship and value with your brand, that takes us ultimately to where businesses want to go more in the long run. So there's a little bit of, I think, a cultural shift that has to happen in organizations. But from a technology standpoint, it really does come down to, do you have the right first-party data strategy in place? And at the crux of that is, do you have a customer data platform that can manage that and make sense, more importantly, of all that data to say, this is what an ideal customer profile looks like for you. These are audiences. And most importantly, providing, an empathetic look at how do these customers or prospects want to be engaged with. And I think
Mm.
that's a piece that I'm glad to see is coming more and more in the forefront as an industry, and something we're very passionate about at Adobe here is, again, making sure you're treating people and understanding them the way that they want to be heard and the way that they want to be treated, rather than just seeing how much volume and how many possible exposures can I put in front of someone.
I like that. And I like that because also there's a focus on quality over quantity, which you had previously mentioned. And it reminded me of another experience with third-party cookies where I bought a pair of shoes, from boots actually, from All Saints, and I was tracked by the ad for that same pair of boots for the next 2 weeks. It was like everywhere I went
Exactly.
online, there it was. If they had the right data and it flowed the right places, they wouldn't be spending that money and investing that effort and annoying a customer by marketing something to them that they've already purchased. Excellent. Thank you so much, Ryan. Do appreciate this time.
Thanks so much, John.